in your own journey, as you engage in natural resources conservation. So, mag-English Tagalog tayo, no? Kasi I have been in the meeting for most of the day and naubos na yung aking English ata eh. No? So, but anyway, let me begin my my presentation. Thank you very much, Brother Ike, for the introduction. So, I guess you know already how old I am. I'm about to retire in August this year, and I hope that my life lessons, will be something that I can also share you with and inspire those who are aspiring advocates of natural resources conservation. Let me start my share screen. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes, clear.
All right, so thank you very much. So my topic for this evening is natural resources conservation, my advocacy and my faith. And as what Brother Ike already mentioned, this is part of the webinar series of the Grace Baptist Church of Los Baños that aims to highlight the harmony of science and faith, and that they are not irreconcilable. That science is a tool by which we are able to understand God's design of His creation, and that we see all around us, including what we will discuss for tonight, the natural resources. So my outline, has 5 parts. So we begin with my advocacy, and then second, we discuss very briefly the intricate design of nature. And then we talk about, a little bit on the brokenness of nature. And then later on, we will discuss the how to fix the broken nature, and then talk about what is the future of nature. So let me begin with my advocacy. My advocacy can be summarized into INREM, integrated natural resources and environmental management. It's also the namesake of one of UPLB's interdisciplinary study center, which I helped conceptualize way back in 2009. And if you look at in this slide, there are 5 important features of this advocacy. This is an integrated approach to natural resources management. The first is that it is integrated and holistic. So managing the environment and natural resources cannot be subdivided or cannot be compartmentalized, as all the elements of environment and the natural resources are part of one system. It is inclusive. In other words, we want everybody to be involved in both the responsibility and at the same time also in sharing the benefits from natural resources management. And then it is participatory. It needs to involve all the stakeholders, in making the decisions as to what and how we want to manage our natural resources. And then it is science-driven. And it means that, our decisions are based on our knowledge about the natural resources, about the environment, how they function, how they operate, albeit imperfect. But this is an imperative, that decisions are made on the basis of what we know. Okay, even if it's limited yet at the time that we make the decisions. And then multiple goals, that we need to have to consider. Okay, balance in goals between economic and environmental protection and natural resources conservation. Of course, we have seen two extreme advocates when it comes when it relates to natural resources management. On one side we have those who are advocating for the complete withdrawal of most of our environment, most of our forest from economic production activity, and on the other side, one that is espousing that the natural resources are there to satisfy all our needs, at all costs and at all times. But both are, to me, both are misplaced advocacy, and that there should be a balance that must be struck between economic goals and environmental and conservation goals. Sorry. If we take a closer look at the design of nature, we will see that in this particular slide, what I'm showing you is a slice of the environment, particularly one landscape unit. You may consider this as a watershed unit, where you have different ecosystems inside it that are interconnected. You have the forest connected to agro ecosystems, to grassland ecosystems, to river ecosystems, lakes and wetland ecosystem, all the way down to urban ecosystems, and then mangrove and coastal ecosystems. They are interconnected. Whatever you do in one ecosystems will have series of impacts and changes corresponding to the other ecosystems in the chain of ecosystems. It is inevitable. No change in one ecosystems will be confined to changes in that ecosystem. It will have impacts. It will cause changes in all the other ecosystem. And this is how we look at, and this is how we look at our environment and natural resources. Everything is interconnected. The risks and vulnerabilities, they are interconnected. Risk in the upland, risk in the lowland, these are interconnected. The problems are interconnected, as what I will show you in the slide after this, and then interconnected solutions. Okay, we see that this connectivity, emanates from the very nature of the environment and natural resources, then all the way to the problems that we experience now, and should carry on towards the way we address these different problems, if we want to have a lasting solution to these problems that we encounter. And then another way to look at a particular landscape, with varying parts, is that there are parts in the landscape that produces services. You look at the forest, for instance, it produces water supply service. And the water supply service is actually benefiting service receiving areas that include coastal and marine, that includes agro ecosystems that needs the water to make the lands productive, and at the same time also the mangrove and coastal ecosystems that need fresh water, carrying with it rich nutrients, coming from the upland areas. And that is only from the point of view of water service that is being produced in the forest. But we can we can also look at the urban area, for instance, where you find all the research and academic institutions that produce knowledge and technologies and innovations that are eventually, being used in the management of the upstream areas, including the forest area. Hence, the service producing area is the urban area for science and technology and information, and the service receiving area is actually the forest. So we see all these kinds of interaction between the different parts of the ecosystem, and it's very difficult to separate them, because they are connected, and their functions are inseparable. But what we see now is that our nature is broken. And for the reason that, our development is proceeding in a fragmented fashion, instead of our environment and natural resources being managed, in an integrated and holistic fashion, what happened is that most of our approach now became fragmented in nature, and that they are no longer integrated as it need to be. And then inclusive, instead of being inclusive, it resulted to inequitable management of natural resources, where some sectors are favored over the others, that others are benefiting much from natural resources, while others are deprived of access to benefits to natural resources. And then the governance system has become so centralized, even if now we're moving towards more community-based type of natural resources management. Still, a lot of the decision-making, in governance of natural resources are centralized with government agencies. And then instead of decision being driven by science, we see most of the decisions being driven by political forces. It's not to say that political forces are bad altogether, but it's wrong if political forces are the dominating, and dominating force of decisions in natural resources management, without paying attention to what science has to say. And then the multiple goals, instead of pursuing multiple goals, there are imbalance development goals. Some are inclined or biased towards economic development goals, and some are biased towards conservation and environmental protection goals, which are both extremes that will not lead to sustainability and efficiency of achieving those different goals. If we look at the forest, we can see here the trend. We can see the trend of the rate that at which we lose our forest cover. So as you can see here, it goes up and then it goes down. It goes up. It goes down. It goes up. It goes down and then goes up again. This is the more recent times. And from a high, in 2016, it started to decline already, until 2019, and this can be attributed to the aggressive program of the government to curtail illegal activities, and at the same time also to mount a strong effort to do reforestation. But still, we're losing a lot of forests, more than we can afford, because we do have only small amount of remaining forest, with us. And what that is that it is associated with severe problems that we experience, such as flooding, landslide, siltation of lakes and rivers, and even outbreaks of infectious diseases. Okay, that can be connected or tied up to the deforestation of the degradation of our forests. And as you can see here, let's not miss this one. Most of deforestation is actually driven by agriculture expansion, and I think this is hidden knowledge to many who believes that illegal logging is the one that is really responsible for many deforestation. But as we can see here, it's actually agriculture expansion that is eating up a lot of our forest lands, converting forests into agricultural lands. And shifting cultivation, which is always an easy target, to blame deforestation on, is actually just contributing a little. That is the yellow part of the bar graph. And then the purple one is attributed to urbanization. It's not much really, if you look at it, but we have to remember that urbanization is eating up a lot of agricultural areas. And when agricultural areas are decimated because of urban expansion, there is now a demand for the agricultural land to expand. And where will agriculture expand? Where will agriculture expand? It will expand towards the natural areas where you have the forest, because that is where the remaining arable lands in the country is located. So as you can see, the purple or the contribution of urbanization can be so much greater than what is depicted in the bar graph. So if you look at again, if you look at the five major problems that we have in our environment, we can actually enumerate them as deforestation, soil and land degradation, water degradation and water-related risks. That includes flooding and landslides, and then outbreaks of pests and diseases, loss of biodiversity and terrestrial and marine ecosystem services. Now, these different problems are interconnected. Deforestation is connected to land degradation, to water degradation, to loss of biodiversity and outbreaks of pests and diseases. So it's important to keep this in mind, because forests are not only there for timber production, but also to render services that will actually mitigate this type of other problems related to deforestation. And then land degradation is related to water degradation, related to loss of biodiversity, water degradation related to loss of biodiversity and outbreaks of pests and diseases, and so on. They are interconnected as well. Now, if we want to solve the problem of deforestation, we have to, we have to really trace the roots, to which we can attribute deforestation. And at the very root of it will be the weakness and poor enforcement of land use and development policies. We do have good policies and we do have good regulations, but most of them, we're not really very good in the area of implementation and enforcement. That gives way to unsustainable forest utilization. That includes illegal logging, and that leads to unsustainable agriculture. That includes expansion of agriculture into forest lands, and that leads to water degradation and also unregulated urbanization and land conversion. As I mentioned, unregulated expansion of urbanization with land conversion or conversion of agricultural lands to urban areas, that is creating problems that will put pressure eventually on the forest lands, where agricultural lands will expand. And we're not mentioning yet here the impacts of climate change, which is considered to be a compounding factor of the problems that we already have to deal with. All right, now what are the other major problems from my point of view? Some people will disagree with me on this, but I see that government agencies that are working in silos is a big problem, because as you can see here in this diagram, many government agencies are actually working in the same space, in the same area, but most of these national government agencies are not working together or are not coordinating and harmonizing their plans and programs. And when that happens, it is expected that there will be a lot of inefficiencies in the use of government resources. There will be a lot of conflicts. There will be a lot of overlaps, that are unnecessary. Okay, making the whole thing inefficient and effective, at the very end of it, at the expense of the natural resources and the environment. Now, this is the reality. Another reality is that local government units are not good neighbors. You can you can try and give me 2 local government units with no boundary conflicts, and I will give you a prize. If you name me 1 or 2 LGUs without boundary conflicts. Okay, local government units must work together as well. Okay, as you can see here, if this is a landscape unit, we have town A in the upstream areas, town B in the midstream areas, town C in downstream areas. If they are not going to work together, at some point in time, each and every one of them will be adversely affected by development that is wrongly prioritized. Okay, so they have to work together. Otherwise, they are going to have problems that they do not want to be confronted with. Okay, so how do we fix nature? How do we fix nature if these are the problems? By the way, if you notice, the problems that I showed you are the more fundamental problems. I did not even enumerate the more direct problems that we contend with in natural resources, but I consider the fundamental causes of natural resources degradation as of paramount importance if we want to have a lasting solution to our problems in natural resources degradation. So how do we fix nature? Well, United Nations Convention on Sustainable Development, have very aptly visualize, how sustainable development goals must be pursued. In that, all these sustainable development goals must be pursued concurrently and in an integrated manner. And what they're saying is that most of the or all of the sustainable development goals cannot be achieved on their own. They have to be pursued concurrently, so that so that the chances of achieving all the goals are increased. Okay, if if the development goals are pursued at the same time and in an integrated manner. Okay. All right, and we need to promote unity of local government units. I have always, given priority to helping out local government units, insofar as natural resources conservation is concerned, because one, they are the ones that directly benefit from natural resources conservation, and they are also the very first one that suffer from its degradation. And they are in authority, they have the jurisdiction over natural resources, not the national government agencies, but the local government units. If the local government units are not able to manage properly, their area of jurisdiction and the natural resources found in their jurisdiction, then we are in trouble. Okay, and hence they are the ones that that we must assist, and we are doing a lot of capacity building for local government units, considering their critical roles in natural resources conservation and environmental protection. And okay, the different sectoral plans and programs of local government units need to be harmonized. Okay, how many development plans each LGU are mandated to develop and implement? There are more than 30 of them. There are more than 30 sectoral development plans that they are supposed to develop and implement. But most of these, sectoral plans are prepared independent of one another, in parallel fashion, that there is no semblance of coordination and integration. There are a few LGUs, that have realized that they need to integrate and consolidate their sectoral development plans, but still a lot of the LGUs, most of the LGUs, have sectoral plans that are disconnected from one another. And you can imagine, in one town, the forest land use plan, the protected area management plan, the ancestral domain development plan, the agriculture development plan, the comprehensive investment plan, the LCCAP, local climate change action plan, and the disaster risk reduction management plan, and many others are not coordinated and harmonized. And this is in one LGU, okay? And this is going to be magnified, if you consider one LGU beside another LGU that has the same condition. And there you can see, the disorder in the way we manage our natural resources and how we do environmental protection. And so, this is the meat. This is the essence of my advocacy, using integrated approaches in order to solve the problems of our natural resources degradation. There are many integrated approaches. We have integrated environmental management approach, ecosystem-based approach, ridge to reef approach. We have integrated water resources management approach, and we have the watershed approach. Okay, watershed approach is my pet. Okay, and as you probably recall, my field of specialization in my PhD is watershed management, and that is where I learned about this watershed approach. And since then, I am advocating. I started advocating watershed approach to natural resources management. But if you look at all these integrated approaches, now they all boil down actually to the integrated management of land, water, plants, animal, and people. Okay, it's the common theme of these different approaches, and they have common, goals: sustainability, equitability, and sufficiency. And this is, where my advocacy lies. Promoting integrated use of the watershed, in land use planning and development. So in the watershed approach, or ridge to reef approach, as some people are calling it now, we manage water resources, we manage land resources, coastal and marine resources, we do environmental impact assessment, and then we combine we combine climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, all in one, process, of addressing them simultaneously. So, if we, this is my favorite, this is my favorite visualization. I always want to do this to confuse my students. Now, actually, I just want to point out one important thing here, and I hope you won't be confused. Now, if you look at the case of water, for instance, groundwater and stream flow, there are three major direct factors that influence its quality and properties. These are soil condition, landform, and climate, okay? More specifically, climate change. They directly affect the condition of water, okay? But they each also affect one another, and that's how intricate the design is, of nature, okay? And you can just wonder, how many things we still don't know, with this complicated design by God, And I have spent more than 30 years of my life in doing research in watersheds, and I have barely scratched, the things that I really need to fully understand so that we can, ensure a proper management of our watershed. And that's how complicated God's design is, We ought to be, to be awed and to be amazed with that, and also motivate us also to study, to study them very well so that we can manage them in the right manner, okay, which is our obligation and duty. Now, these are the direct factors, direct drivers of the condition of water resources, but there are also indirect drivers. That is where you have your forest, your biodiversity, pests and diseases, they affect the soil condition, they affect climate, okay? And in changing that, they are affecting water. They do not directly affect water, okay? But they do affect the direct factors that affect water. Okay, and then you have land use. Land use does not directly affect water, but it affects biodiversity, it affects climate, it affects soil. Okay, that will change, and then the impact or changes on water will take place because of land use. And then land use is dependent on knowledge, attitude, and practices of the people. And that this knowledge, attitude, and practices of the people are shaped by policies and programs, and by culture and traditions. Now, if you look at this, at the very root of promoting the protection and sustainability of water resources is actually, making sure that policies and programs are correct, proper, and that the knowledge, attitude, and practices of the people insofar as land use and the use of other natural resources are concerned are also correct or proper, okay? If we can ensure that, then the rest is automatic. The rest is automatic. We can expect that water resources will become sustainable and will be sufficient and in the quality that we want. But if we cannot control, the human part of the human part of the equation, then it's going to be tough to fix the problems related to water in this case. Okay, so I don't want you to confuse, to be confused about that. So I just so how do we now, fixing the nature? I always want to say this: fixing nature needs fixing people. But what are the tasks that we need to do, so that we can actually fix the brokenness of nature? I consider three important tasks. One is fixing knowledge, attitude, and practices. The other one is fixing policies and institutions, and the third one is fixing the use, the way we use land, the way we use water, the way we use forest. And then to be able to do these tasks, I see that there are many tools that we need. So there is some sort of a toolbox. Okay, there's a toolbox that we need that contains all the tools. Okay, that we need, all the equipment that we need to be able to do the task. And that includes science, education, technology, innovation, information, different kinds of paradigms, value formation, and so on. Many others, including gifts and talents of people, these are the tools that we need. These are the tools that we can use. And all of these are actually provisions, provisions coming from God, so that we are able to do our task, of properly managing the natural resources. And hopefully, if we are able to use these tools properly to complete the task, we will see the desired results, which is, we have educated, competent community of stakeholders. We have science-based policies. We have sustainable land, okay, water, and forest resources. Now, given all this, our expectation is that the end goal can be achieved. And what is the end goal? The end goal is that the nature is fixed, finally. But is it? Given all of this, we know now, there's a lot of advances in science, in information, in technology, and education, but is nature going to be fixed, if we project that into the future and see, with all of this, are we going to really fix the nature, okay, given where we are now, in terms of science? Let me answer that later, okay? So let's look at, this is the way I look at God's design, in relation to the natural creation, and its in its degradation. There are key events, and then for each of the key events, we can associate the state of nature, and then also the kind of stewardship, of nature. At the point of creation, the nature, nature is perfectly sustainable. Nothing to fix. All right, nothing to fix. It's forever sustainable. Okay, all we need to do is to harness, to harvest, to whatever, get all the benefits that we can get from it. Okay, and the stewardship that that was intended at that point in time, in the creation of perfect paradise, condition, is that the stewardship is God-centered. It is fully competent. In other words, everything that we ought to know, or man has to know, to manage properly the nature created at that time, is fully knowledgeable and dutiful and worshipful, and at the same time joyful. Who wouldn't enjoy, okay, having an environment that is so paradise, in condition, okay, where there are no problems. But we know that the fall of creation to sin, has started the deterioration of the natural creation of natural resources and environment. Problems and challenges arose. We then have, our knowledge, became inadequate. That we need to know more about the creation that has started to deteriorate, which was not the original design. All right, we have to contend with greed. We have to contend with politics, with corruption, poverty, disasters, and everything else. And all of these were not part of the original creation. And now we have to understand more how nature, how natural resources and environment are functioning, operating, given all these aberrations, that were brought about by sin of man. And the kind of stewardship then became self-centered and became inadequately knowledgeable and became incompetent, because we have now an imperfect knowledge and imperfect understanding of how to best manage a broken environment. Now, and then we are now at this period, where we are transitioning to restoration. Of course, we know that the start of restoration has already been inaugurated at the first coming of Christ, And you see that in 2 Corinthians 5:17 and Isaiah 65:17, where the beginning of the restoration of creation already began. Yet, the state of nature at this particular point in time is still continuously deteriorating. However, the goods and services flowing from the natural resources and environment continue to flow to us, and that is by the grace of God. But we are tasked to labor to be able to make or keep the land and our natural resources productive and able to supply our needs. Okay, and then the stewardship, and in this period of time, we know that there is a growing knowledge, growing improvement of methods, approaches, strategies to address challenges, growing consciousness on duties to be performed to sustain nature. Even among us, even among believers, we're starting to grow in this awareness, and that is what we do with KSN. We try to keep everybody afresh, in the sense of their responsibility to take care of nature and environment as a matter of obedience, to obedience to God, and as a matter of our duty to glorify God, in the way we properly manage our natural resources. Okay, so this is how it's meant to be. But of course, at the second coming of Christ, we know that the restoration of all creation will be consummated. Okay, and that natural resources and environment will again become perfectly sustainable, and the stewardship that we ought to perform is God-centered. We will be fully competent, and we will be dutiful and worshipful, and we will be joyful at the same time. And this is the kind of future that really makes me excited, because I know that when I look at things, the way things are changing for the better, it's really slow, and sometimes it's even getting worse, rather than improving. With all the efforts that we put in, with all the reforms that the government is implementing, with all of what we learn, with all of the results of the research, that we are able to generate. Yet, if we look at the condition of nature and environment, it continues to deteriorate, and sometimes, it makes you waver in your advocacy. And that's, I experience that a lot of time. I tell many colleagues, that I'm close with, that I tell them that, I think I have to give up on this. To me, it seems hopeless. To me, it seems that what we are actually aspiring for is not, that we're not really moving closer to it at all. Even if we do a lot of hard work. But what I realize is that, our task really is just to be able, our duty is just to be able to do our responsibilities to the best that we can. The result, we leave that to God. Whether environment and nature, will be repaired with what we're doing. That's not up to us, and that's not up to our efforts. Our task is to be committed to the responsibility given to us to take care of nature, to take care of environment, and that is our way of glorifying God, and that keeps me going. For more than 5 years, I attended the public hearing of the proposed bill on National Land Use Act, because I firmly believe that we need a National Land Use Act to put in order the use of land in our country. So I attended continuously for 5 years when I was the director of Forestry Development Center. I was there in every public hearing in Congress. But after 5 years, I gave up, because I said, I can't see any hope that this law will ever pass, because it doesn't seem that the lawmakers actually appreciate that we need this kind of law. Okay, but I realized then that if we give up in our advocacy, if we give up in what we believe in, then we're actually abandoning our responsibility to be able to do that job. It may not bear fruit, it may not give us the right result, but at least we have done what we are supposed to do. And that is true also for you. It doesn't matter how small you can do to contribute to natural resources conservation and environmental protection. It doesn't matter how small that is. If that is the responsibility given you, you have to do it well. Okay, not for the results that you will get out of it, but because you know that in doing it, and if you do it well, that can be glorifying. That can be glorifying to God. All right. So my last slide is this one. Okay, going back to this graph. The question is, is this rate of forest degradation or loss of forest cover continue to go down until it finally reaches zero forest loss? That will be the day that we want to see. Or at some point in time, will it rise? Will it rise again? And increase again? Okay. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that God has a plan. God has a plan. In Romans 8:20-22, it says here that the creation itself will be set free from the bondage to corruption. Okay, the creation, man, nature, okay, environment will be set free from corruption. And this is the kind of future that awaits us. Okay, right now we don't know. I don't know whether my advocacy, whether my efforts, my contribution will really matter. I don't know whether it will change something, for the better. I don't know about that. Okay, but what I do know is that I just need to continue on doing my job, and make sure that I give my best to it, as part of my duty to God. And I know that somewhere, sometime in the future, okay, everything else that we see around us will be renewed, will be restored, and as if it was a condition during the time that they were created by God. And I hope that also motivates you, to look forward to that kind of condition, of our environment and nature, which is perfect, But for those of us who are not yet believer in Christ, I'm sorry to say that you will not be able to experience this kind of future unless you come to our Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior and Lord. Okay, no matter how you work so hard to protect the environment, no matter how much you advocate for it, no matter how much you spend, no matter how much of your life you spend for it, if you are not in Christ, this kind of future is not going to be with you. You are not going to be part of this wonderful restoration of creation that will happen at the second coming of Christ. So I hope that with this lecture, you have you are taking home with you at least one good key message. I know that I have given you a lot of information that might be difficult to digest, but hopefully you will come home with a key message with you from this lecture. So thank you very much once again for listening, and thank you very much to the Reform Campus Ministry for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.